Hey friends, so in this week's video, we are talking about a subject that is really nobody's favorite thing to discuss, and that is rejection. Rejection comes in all shapes and sizes, and none of them are fun to be on the receiving end of. It's one of those things that no matter how many times you're told not to take it personally, you will most likely take it very personally. And, I mean, really, how else are you supposed to take it? You are the one being rejected, right? Well, hang on a second. A lot of things in life really are about perspective, and while this one is tough to see the bright side of, there is something that I think a lot of people don't realize when they are being rejected, and that is that rejection has a ton more to do with that other person than it does with you. Now, before you roll your eyes and click away, stick with me because I'll explain all of this and more, okay? So, when you are rejected, what happens? You feel hurt because someone didn't choose you or someone walked away from you. And those hurt feelings come with a lot of uncomfortable stuff. That hollow pit in your stomach, that feeling like you have a bruise on your heart, right? And it can lead you to start picking apart every single thing you did or said leading up to the rejection or through the course of the relationship, wondering what you did wrong or what you could have done better or different to give you a different result. You can often feel like there's something wrong with you or you aren't good enough because why else would someone reject you? Let's talk about the deeper truth. Sometimes people don't reject you because you're lacking. In fact, most of the time, that is the case. I don't really want to tell you not to feel like you're lacking, but don't feel this way because all of this is simply just not true. The truth actually is that sometimes people don't reject you because it's you that is lacking in some way. They reject you because being in your orbit demands a level of love, care, or self-awareness that they simply cannot give to you. And somewhere deep down, they know it. Yes, you heard that right. Typically, rejection is not about you. It is about them. Look, people can only meet you as deeply as they have met themselves. And this is true regardless of how loving, open, patient, kind, and empathetic you are. If they are simply not on that level, then there are really only two choices. They can rise to your level and meet you there, or they can take the easy route and walk away. And when they do walk away, they will usually tell you something like, "It's not you, it's me," or "You deserve better." Which, listen, this is an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to be honest and say it anyway. I know that to a lot of people, this is a nice way to let somebody down. It sounds less harsh than telling them, I really wasn't that into you in the first place, or sorry, but I don't like you anymore and I want to explore other options. But it is still not a blanket pardon for, well, anything. The person on the receiving end is still going to be the one who is hurt and shouldering the self-doubt and the feelings of what's wrong with me, and I'm sorry, but that is wildly unfair to them. Especially since when people say things like that, you know, the whole "you deserve better" thing, they aren't being honest. At least, not completely. They are right about the first part, you do deserve better. But the part that they are not saying out loud is this: while they are aware that you are a good person who deserves more than they have to offer, they could also be better and rise to your level, but they just do not want to. They aren't ready. Or they are fine with only half-loving people because they don't want to do the work it requires to heal that part of them which is blocking them from having authentic, vulnerable, deep connections with other people. And hey, look, not everyone is ready. Not everyone wants to be honest with themselves about why things never seem to work out for them. Maybe they will be ready someday. Maybe they won't. That's something they have to work through. And in a perfect world, they work on this on their own without dragging others into it and making them collateral damage in the war that they are fighting against themselves. But sadly, most people are not that self-aware. Or perhaps they are, but they are also afraid to be alone. And that is a very dangerous person to get into a close relationship with. Because unless they start doing some of that work so that they can be better, in the end, they are going to choose their trauma over you every single time. And they will do it to the next person, and the one after that too, until they run out of options, or they find the stones to look in the mirror and decide that they are done letting those wounds that they are trying so hard to pretend don't exist dictate how they lead in their relationships. So, getting back to the bigger picture here, I want you to think about this. Your presence is powerful. Your honesty, your needs, your love, they come with a price tag. Not a transactional price, an emotional one. To love you well, someone might have to be honest with themselves in ways that they've been avoiding. They have to show up. They have to love you in a way that requires them to grow. And as we have already discussed, some people just don't want to or aren't ready. They either don't have the tools or they do have the tools, but fear is stopping them from picking them up. Whatever the case may be, and no matter how strong the temptation is to see this as your shortcoming, it's not. It's their limit, and it's one that they have set for themselves. So really, in rejecting you, they are also doing plenty of rejecting themselves in a way, too. Now, let's talk about another slightly different flavor of rejection, the one where they didn't even see you for what you have to offer. That happens all the time, too, unfortunately. And phew, I have seen people go through things that were incredibly painful and difficult with people that they weren't even really in a real relationship with. That's heartbreak on a whole other level, and that's because not only are you dealing with the pain of the rejection, but you're also mourning the possibility of what you think you could have had too. That is crazy making, and it can make you feel invisible to someone that you probably would have done anything for. Listen, it's valid to feel that sting. It hurts to be misunderstood or underestimated. But you know what? If someone can't see your worth, it's not your responsibility to find their glasses so they can. And it also doesn't shrink your worth or make it any less in any way. Imagine it this way. You're sitting in a room listening to the most beautiful piece of music you've ever heard in your life, when all of a sudden, wham, your headphones or AirPods or whatever cut out. All you hear is silence. Who are you mad at? The person that wrote that beautiful piece of music or the AirPods? Does it make the music any less beautiful because you couldn't hear it temporarily? Of course not. It's still a masterpiece. The problem was the conduit. When someone doesn't pay attention to your efforts or you feel like you need to twist yourself into a pretzel so that they notice you, there's a problem. There is nothing wrong with trying to impress someone, but when whatever you are doing has gone too far and you are abandoning yourself to serve them in some way, you're on a slippery slope, friends. There is no guarantee that they may ever see you the way you want them to, and that is your sign to stop knocking on that closed door. As people, we knock on those all the time, don't we? And half the time we knock and knock until our knuckles are raw, and then we come to find out that behind that door was a big, fat nothing. This is your ego directing you to do that. And friends, this is one of those times where you should really not listen to your ego at all. Not on this. Trust me on this one. So far in the video, we have talked about rejection on the receiving end. a lot. But we'd be a little disingenuous here if we didn't also talk about the flip side of that. As much as we hate being rejected, we've all been the one who didn't choose someone else too. Maybe you met a good person, a kind person, but your heart just didn't light up. Or maybe you got involved with someone that you liked well enough, but you couldn't take it to the next level with because you weren't aligned somewhere. You weren't going in the same direction in your lives. So you had to be honest with them and tell them that while you feel they're a good person, they just aren't good for you. It sucks to admit that, because even though you might not have wanted to hurt that person, you probably did, and that just never feels good to do. But regardless of having this knowledge, sometimes the only real choice that we have is to turn away. And there are plenty of times where we fail to show up with the same courage that we expect from others. That doesn't make us bad people, it makes us human. And as long as you were honest with your intentions, then that's the best you can do. Look, this is one of those situations where intentions really do make an actual difference. I mean, sure, there are definitely people who unfairly lead other people on and give them mixed messages and play games for their own personal selfish reasons. But there are plenty who do not do that and show up with their best effort that they are able to make. Sometimes it just falls short, and when it does, it becomes clear eventually to the person on the receiving end, after time and their processing of what happened, what category your relationship fell in. So when you're sitting with the ache of not being chosen, remember, you've likely sat on the other side of that table too. And when you did, it wasn't because the other person was worthless. It was because they weren't right for you, or they weren't right for you at that time. This is one of those things that I think we don't consider nearly enough when we talk about rejection, so I wanted to mention it because it's important too. Let's circle back and land on this. Rejection is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that that person is wrong for you, or at a minimum, wrong for you right now. A relationship that demands a level of love or trust or presence that they can't offer is a recipe for endless disappointment. If they'd stayed, they would have kept falling short. You would have had to keep shrinking yourself and making yourself less. And that is just not a fair trade. What hurts right now is the gap between what you wanted and what you got. But that gap doesn't mean that you're too much or not enough or that you need to change something. It simply means you need someone whose capacity matches yours, whose vision sees you clearly, whose readiness meets yours in the middle. At this point in the video, I wish there was something I could say to fix that hollow feeling in your chest that rejection might have left you with. But the truth is that there really isn't a fast fix. There's no real life version of eternal sunshine of the spotless mind that we can just teleport to and fix this all up quickly. The only way out is through. But there are some things you can do to help put a little salve on that wound to make it at least bearable until one day it heals and you don't even remember it being there at all. That would be something like reminding yourself of the big truth here. They didn't choose me, and that hurts, but that does not mean that I'm unworthy. Repeat that one as many times as you have to. Also, stop rewriting yourself. Don't start editing who you are to be more palatable or less of this or more of that. Remember what they say about doors. If you keep knocking on one and it's not opening, that doesn't mean knock louder. It just means that's not your door. Offer grace to that person because, yes, they may have fumbled you, but sometimes people really just aren't ready, and that is not your job to fix. Offer grace to yourself, too, for feeling the way that you do. It is an incredibly good feeling, friends, to do your work and later on realize how much you've grown and that you've learned something, and now the things you used to trip on are things you just walk smoothly past and keep on going unbothered. If you know, you know on that one. Also, remember that there is one thing that is guaranteed about tables. They always turn. And finally, stay open. Not everyone is going to reject you or make you work so hard just to be in a relationship with. Relationships are not difficult or complicated, friends. People are. And when you are with the right person, it makes a huge difference. It will feel different. And that is a beautiful thing. So, if the right person just hasn't come along yet, don't worry. They will. So make the space for it. And when they do arrive, listen, it won't be a, maybe, or, okay, I guess. It won't even be a yes. It will be a hell yes. Or a super enthusiastic yes. And it will be followed up with yes, you, right where you are, right there, right as you are. That's all I've got for you this week. I'll be back next week with another priority message. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Bye.